timing. And I think we're really on to something here with this inner and outer and kind of mirrored reflections of this system. So what do you think about going into a clearing of this what do we want to call it? It's a non-physical body system. Um, and it's designed to create interference in our field. And so I've heard people talk about removing their chakras, but I think that's an incomplete process because if you remove the chakras, but you still have the other seven kind of reflections of it, then you're going to have some weird jarring, maybe stuff bouncing around. And I'm not saying remove them necessarily, but what I am saying is let's take the sigils down, close all the portals,
There you
and
go.
and maybe just like kind of like shut it down as a system for the collective and see what
Yep.
happens.
Yep. Well, yeah, I'm being attacked, by the way. So I need some holy water.
Yeah, okay. Well, let's start with that.
Yeah. So I will do I'll do a demonstration at some point. Yeah, I lit a candle, reinforcing shields, and just blasting outward. I'm casting everything away. Get away from me. I don't care who you are. Didn't I tell you? Go to the winery. They're partying over there. Go get them.
How about get off our planet?
Yeah, yeah. Well, I told them you got this weekend, or maybe even we'll extend out to Halloween. Go have a big final blast, and then take the portal out of here.
You know what's so
Yep.
funny? So I recently went on a trip to Moab, Utah, which is a gorgeous place, and there's a lot of ancient land spirits there, and it's really awesome. And I love tapping into the land, and I was able to do some really cool magic down there. But what I heard the whole trip was like cast with the same thing, like casting out these spirits, but it was almost like you're on notice. Your time here is winding down. You have until the end of October to basically get your shit together and GTFO. We like you no longer belong here. We do not consent to your influence. We do not want you on this planet. So here's your notice. You have until like you just said, Halloween, and then we'll see what shifts from there. But it was like, it felt like on such a grand scale. It was not like I'm talking to these entities. It was like Gaia's telling you, your time is done. So bye.
Yeah.
So I'm just sending golden light firstly to your central column. Well, I'm sending it to your higher self, and your higher self can integrate that in however is best for you.
All right. I'm doing likewise. Well, you've got a whole grid that's populating.
Calling in all our helpers and friends across all lifetimes, timelines, spaces, dimensions, and realities in the name of service to others and clearing interference paradigms for all beings across all lifetimes, timelines, spaces, dimensions, and realities. Eliminating all inappropriate reflections that are not in our highest good and not in service to the unity consciousness field. And so it is. The more work that we do on Gaia, like I see her establishing her light in kind of brand new ways. And as things clear out through these channels that go within her, and it reaches the core, and like it almost like I see it becoming interdimensional, where the energy kind of goes into her core, and then I don't understand the mechanics of it, but I see it exiting Gaia's sphere. So sending love and blessings with all of that energy for the highest good of every all. I'm anchoring light from the truest, highest version of our sun, our solar system's sun. As we step into our central channel and align it with our higher selves, our oversouls, our true north, our highest timeline possible, through our direct connection to source, which probably runs through the sun. So we'll just pull it from there, pulling it down, pulling it down.
Yep.
Do you still feel under attack?
No, no, it's gone now. Right before I left, it says we still have a little bit of time because I said get off my planet.
That's fine. Enjoy your last week on Earth. So it
Exactly.
is.
Yep. It's good though. I feel like my feet are on rock solid ground, standing in my true identity. They don't stand a chance. I go stand on Mount Hermon right now where the angels fell, and just I feel like I just gather them up in a big ball and roll them downhill into the ocean.
Yeah, I mean, so let's stand there and anchor our Earth Star chakra. And from our central channel, let's just literally drop a cord into our Earth Star chakra and allow it to drop down into Gaia's core, all the way deeply and completely into her core, into her master cell. Because this isn't just about us, this is a collective with the planet, co-creation. And so as we perform this healing on the collective of humanity, we also share it with the collective of planets currently awakening at this time, because maybe it's not just Gaia. So we drop this energetic cord into the core master cell of Gaia herself. And we just anchor that light within this master cell and we surround it with protection of the highest order, assisted by all our friends and helpers and guides across all of the lifetimes, timelines, spaces, dimensions, and realities. Demanding that all of the outgoing energy takes all of its belongings, all of its helpers, friends, all of its trash, all of its debris. We don't need to be bogged down by clearing up all of your junk. When you leave, take all your shit with you. We don't want it. We do not accept. We do not consent. Take all of your portals with you, everything affecting our auric layers, our body area networks, our wide body area networks, all of our technology, our devices, our local area networks, wide area networks, data storage, protocols, processes, handshakes, cell phones, tablets, all of the above, all technological devices are cleansed and cleared through the exiting of this energy, cleared and cleansed of any negative interference protocols and paradigms. We do not consent to the use of our body in these ways. Gratitude, expressing gratitude for the lessons we've learned here. We would not be the same without the knowledge and the wisdom gained in this process. But we also reclaim the sovereignty and in establishing strong boundaries around what we do not consent to. Allowing space for those watching to set any additional intentions with this process. Anything we'd like cleared, restored, reintegrated into the unity consciousness template. As we anchor new light, we allow that which is in opposition to flow freely to the exit. And Gaia's already opened a portal for that transference to take place. It's interesting though. I see this huge kind of pillar of light forming, and it's two rings of light, and on the outer ring it's kind of white light coming down, and the inner ring is like black light flowing up and out. And so it's almost like the black light is this density exiting in an equal and opposite. And as the density exits, the white light comes in equal and uh, it's like I don't remember the person who to every action there's an equal and opposite reaction. Who is this?
Isaac Newton,
That's right. Thank you.
or as I refer to him today, Brian May.
So we're going to hold space for this process to complete in divine timing, and we'll know it's done when I'm hearing Gaia say we are done, and the realms of angelic assistance will continue holding this space. But we'll know when it's done because the emerald green energy will start to flow through the black, and that's how we know that that the deepest, darkest parts of the density are gone, and that's the green is Gaia's showing me her organic natural core. It's like
Mhm.
the like that emerald tablet energy is stored in her core. And so as the dark forces leave, it opens up her ability to shine her own natural light through instead of um the other version. Trying to figure out what word to put there, and like 100 different words came through. So we'll just say the other version. We're no longer the other version of ourselves, and so it is. We step into our purity, into our sovereignty, and into our organic, original divine blueprint. That's another thing, being careful with words, because when people say organic divine blueprint, I hear opportunity for shenanigans if you're not being super conscious of the words. Like, okay, well, if it's the original organic divine blueprint, is that different than organic divine blueprint? And is that an opportunity for misappropriation because
Mhm.
of semantics? And I think that's going to be a big eye opener when all of this finally comes to light and people realize just the extent of the illusions and bad words are getting hard. Okay,
Yeah.
so I'm calling in more angelic light into my own central channel as well.
Calling in Archangel Uriel and his angels, for he is the bearer of light. I shouldn't say it that way. Here we go, semantics again. He
It's
carries,
tricky.
he is the light of God. That is his identity. He brings in that cosmic light of truth. He is a sword bearer, so he can defend off anything that might threaten that light, threaten that truth. And then he also carries the book of wisdom. And that full wisdom is at your disposal. You can employ any and all aspects of it anytime you need to. I'm also being told to watch the northern lights. I'm going to use that term, not the other term, but watch the northern lights. They will no longer be purple. They will be green, just like you described. And that will be a sign that Gaia has detoxified.
Cool.
If you look at older pictures of it, they're green with some like chartreuse and other things, but they're not purple. Purple is the HAARP stuff, the microwave energy. The false light.
The inappropriate technological influence, yes.
Exactly. Yep.
The illusionary one.
Well, and you've noticed that all the skinny clouds that we've been seeing for all these years, I haven't seen any in a while. So I don't know if you guys had anything to do with it, but I'm very grateful to see blue sky again.
I'm calling in that cosmic wisdom, universal love, and undistorted discernment into the central channel of the collective, both vertically and horizontally, to meet in unity at the central axis point, to anchor all this in through all time, space, dimensions, and realities for the highest good of every all.
Wow, Crystal, we got a crowd. All I did was I was just reaching out to Archangel Uriel, and then two or three angels linked onto him came around, and all of a sudden, just like layer by layer by layer, there are all these angels just sort of crowding in a big circle around us. They're very interested in what we're up to. Very interested.
Yeah, they're so underutilized. Like, how many people call in the support of their angels? I know a handful, but I know it's not prominent here.
Yeah.
So I think they're excited for the opportunity to do some good on behalf of unity consciousness, and they've been waiting a long time for that opportunity. So as much as they're standing in a circle, there's also like uh, how do I describe this? It's like a spiral. They're like, yes, they're standing in a circle, but it's also not just one circle because it's spiraling around this channel of energy that we're holding space for. Like
Yeah.
they're helping us hold that space.
Mhm. And Uriel's telling me he's explaining that I know that a certain wizard was complaining that angels don't do anything for us, but they had to be extremely respectful of our free will. And what we didn't also take into account is that also included the free will of Gaia and also the sun and the other planets. So now that we have discussed this with Gaia, Gaia has now given her will to them, and asked for their assistance. So now that's why they've got a lot more permission now to be more involved. And she called them all in.
Yeah, I think that's an interesting distinction and area of opportunity for to witness is like how often do we want to heal and clear things for people, but we don't always realize the extent and the depth of the co-creation at play with Gaia. So it's almost like we're not sending healing energy to people. We're anchoring it into Gaia's core so that she can take it and disperse it like a, those balls of electric, like there's an electricity thing at the middle and it's surrounded by glass and you put your fingers on it and it like shoots out at your fingers. Like that's kind of how I see her facilitating this healing through the electricity that runs through her that like that we have been developing all these years, like our electrical grids and systems and everything else, is she's regridding all of that because
Mm-hmm.
we are so bombarded with technology and information and electricity that it's beyond like maybe our capacity as individuals or even decent sized groups to perform this healing at the level that it's truly needed because it needs to come from the core. And as we identify that and share it and open that up for Gaia, we're creating a channel for the co-creation for it to flow in its highest form.
Mm-hmm.
It's almost like the filament on a light bulb. Like how there's that part where like there's a gap. It's not
Yep.
really a gap. It's like a spinny wire thing, but it's like Gaia's on one end and we're on the other, and we are strongest when we are in tandem with each other and like true partnership with our co activities. We'll say.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. On the electrical side, electricity or any kind of current will follow the path of least resistance. And so that's another message that I'm getting is that you guys are, we as humans, we are lowering our resistance now more than ever. And that's where the help comes from. That's why I was having trouble with manifestation. I might have mentioned before about, just trying to accepting my own identity outside of my flesh suit and my job and everything else. And that's probably why I don't have a job right now. Trying to get me out of thinking that you are this thing or that your boss has authority and such. So my resistance is a lot lower than it was a month ago. And now I'm seeing a lot more synchronicities.
I think there's plenty of people that could benefit from what one might call a 3D job, but I also think there's some important lessons in coming to the realization that maybe we don't need that. Maybe it's our choice whether we want to go into that realm. But it's a journey for anyone who chooses not to because it's about learning your gifts and then figuring out how to share them with the world. And
Yeah,
that hasn't always been an easy process, and there's a lot of different like interferences and things that want to get in the way of that. And
that too. Yes.
so clearing the path for all forms of true light to shine their identity through the world in the way they see fit, in the way that's most aligned for them, in their sovereignty and their creative genius inner child. I, I see this lotus flower kind of populating around Gaia.
That's a sign of detoxification. The purple lotus in particular is the most spiritual plant, I think, on earth.
I don't know what's happening, but some of my technology is recalibrating a little bit as we're holding this space.
Yeah.
My camera's glitched a few times. In fact, it's been doing that for a couple of weeks now, so we'll just condition all of that as well.
I haven't been paying attention to mine to see if it was glitching or not. I don't think so.
No, I haven't noticed anything on your end. It's only me that glitches too. Like it's just like like my background is fine. Something about that dance class, something entered my technology and my field and I think stored itself in my home. So we're releasing all that too for me and the collective.
Just
Also,
setting the frequency of quartz, which I'm sure you already have in your domicile there. Quartz, just to transmute any digital noise, dirt, defragment the area around it. Yeah. Let me activate your kyanite as well.
lots of kyanite.
Excellent. So that should definitely be compatible with your electronics. Just to activate it so it doesn't store any of it. Just activate it, defragment, zero out, and then you can vacuum it up later. Okay, that's a good point. I can actually, there's a kyanite line here. I can activate that.
That's a
Help
great
give,
idea.
yeah, help give the, I don't know, the dark, yeah, I shouldn't say, I was just gonna say the darkies,
Like it.
the dark entities a push.
Yeah, we can extend that activation to all crystal mines, all underground caves, all underwater caves, anywhere and everywhere that crystals formulate and grow. Shining Gaia's organic etheric light into every single pocket, every single crystal, every single stone, every consciousness that carries it through all time, space, dimensions, and realities. Only highest light, highest love, and highest good of every all can permeate these organic structures.
I'm catching that there's some, shall we say, guards around kyanite mine. I guess I should have figured that as much. And I'm just telling them, hey, don't worry about it. We're all going to benefit. And they're like, no, you're not allowed here. I was like, yeah, but we're celebrating the emancipation of Gaia. And they looked scared. Now they're on the run.
You cut off these rocks, we think they're ours. Oh yeah, mom says otherwise.
Yeah. Sayonara, suckers.
So let's release their whole collective, whatever guardsmanship uh is attempting to hold strongholds in all layers, levels, and dimensions of Gaia's existence. We are advocates of her sovereignty, and she has claimed it as her own, which means you no longer have contracts here. She has revoked those that do not serve the highest good of the collective through all timelines, lifetimes, spaces, dimensions, and realities. Oh, that's a big one. There's been a lot of crystalline interference on lots of layers.
Yeah.
I'm getting something about blood density too with this.
Blood density, huh?
Yeah, like I'm not even really sure what that means, but almost like if there was a way to change the density of our blood through the crystals in the planet, that has been tried.
Hmm.
And so let's remove all that. Same thing with the cerebral spinal fluid.
Hmm.
I already knew that. This blood density thing is new to my awareness.
Well, it's a sign of age. The older you get, the thicker your blood gets. I think it just becomes more dense energetically. It becomes more dense.
Maybe it's
And
not
so,
supposed to.
what's that?
Maybe it's not supposed to. Maybe that's the interference is this idea that we age is also an
Yeah.
interference
Yep.
and a deep programming and it's so interesting and tricky the way some of this stuff works because it literally is us doing it to ourselves. How many people do you know that walk around going, oh, aches and pains, oh, I'm getting old?
Yeah.
Maybe that's how
Yep.
you're interpreting it, and maybe you're cursing yourself by saying that.
That's it. That's a feedback loop.
Hmm.
Well, and then generation by generation, we hear the old folks say that all the time, and then we grow up and move into it. Now, I resisted it quite a bit.
I've always felt like age is just an imaginary number that we give ourselves anyways.
Mhm.
Like mostly because it's so linear. Like I've never in this incarnation, it's been interesting for me to find common ground with people that are my same linear age because I've always had some level of wisdom and like I just it's been interesting to find where I fit. And so I've always felt like age is just a number since I was a kid because I always resonated more with, with older people, like not just my family, but like my mom's friends and people that we would hang out with occasionally. Like I had better conversations with them than I ever did people my age growing up. And so I think there's definitely different ways to take that, like age and what it means and how much you influence that on yourself. I have this joke that when people ask how old I am, I always tell them I quit counting at 25. because age
Hmm.
is just a number. And I came up
Yeah.
with that, I think, when I was like 23 or 24, and I was like, I'm gonna do that.
Mhm. So maybe this is young.
Yeah, it's all about mindset and positive mental attitude.
Yeah.
The paradigms of the world get us kind of bogged down in, whatever we end up picking up, whether that's fear or, self-deprecation or whatever it is. And so coming into the realization that we really are in the driver's seat of that process gets to be maybe a learning experience and a whole fun adventure on redefining some of those things for ourselves.
He does look incredibly young for his age, but he says he spends like $3 million a year on his youth regeneration program. But then there's another guy who doesn't do any of that stuff. He spends very little money, and his concept is more like mental attitude. He says that normally his diet is a lot of fasting, but then also a lot of juicing. But then I think once or twice a week he goes out with friends and then he eats whatever he wants, even if it's junk food. And because for him the social aspect is more life affirming than worrying about what you're going to eat in that one sitting.
Yeah, I think that's a totally fair um, kind of way to play that. I mean, it balances like detoxification and cleansing in such a way that doesn't get in the way of normal life, um, but allows, I mean, I guess a certain level of clarity to flow in that and flexibility to be able to kind of have a little bit of both sides and still make it work for you. I think there's something to be said about bringing that positive mental attitude into the heart because we're so conditioned to being in the mind all the time, and that's where a lot of this stuff formulates. And so I like this formula of keeping the diet kind of clean and detoxed in order to keep the mind detoxification kind of stable, and then bringing that, I just see it kind of funneling down into the heart as this heart channel opens and cleans out. Ooh, maybe that vacuum thing is able to suction down whatever gunk in the brain we don't need and kind of clear out through this horizontal axis point as well.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's not the same. We can't hijack their technology while it's there. And
I mean, there's some moral responsibility with that, and I'm sure somebody would have something to say about ethics and making sure that we don't go backwards and all that kind of thing.
yeah.
Do you feel this
Well,
horizontal channel yet? Because I'm seeing us both like holding space for this, and something's happening in the middle, and I don't quite know what yet.
well, like a foggy center that's developing.
Yeah, maybe. I don't think it's meant to be foggy. I think we're bringing awareness to the fact that it's there, and it's maybe a channel that is going to clear out once we um like step into holding space for it, perhaps. I see the angelic team circling around again in that same spiral.
Mm. Well, I'm seeing the color spectrum kind of descending down through it. And again, with the electrical, like those, yeah, the electrical sparks that you talked about, zapping here, zapping there.
I call them sparkle farts.
Nice. Sparkle parts.
That's the name of my Wi-Fi, and I've been trying to figure out why. And so I just gave it a cool job. And I made the connection when I think it was Alvar that said if you throw sparkles at something, it's kind of like do you remember this conversation? I'm trying to remember exactly how he described it, but it's like a clearing thing, and also like helps it come up to in vibration in some way.
Okay. All right. Well, it's like spraying a handful of ones and zeros and seeing what sticks. Yeah, I'm recollecting the story we had from Tesla about the negative ions. But I'm taking one spark. I'm just kind of bringing it up, and I'm looking at it, and what you have is really bright in the middle, but instead of it tapering off evenly, there's actually this dark circle around it. It just clearly delineates the inner light away from the outer light. So both of those potentialities are there, fully dark, fully light.
And I'm seeing the like the old style light bulbs where the filament was like in a spiral,
Yeah.
and the space in between it is the dark, and the spiral is the light.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it gets darker just outside of the light. Those are Edison tubes. See, your Salt Lake is a capacitor. That's why you've got good energy to work with out there.
Good energy
I,
that's being masked by apparently lots of dark magic, according to what I'm hearing lately.
yeah.
I do feel pockets of like density as I move through the city, but I'm very conscious about the way that I move through the city in my Tesla because I know I'm creating electrical fields through my Tesla as I'm doing that because I'm setting the intention that I am. And so there's something about like the paths that I've taken and I've tracked them sometimes and it's been fun to look back at those because like some of them look like animals in different shapes. So there's one that was like a praying, very distinctly a praying mantis like head. There's one that was a llama head.
Huh.
So I'm almost seeing like um I don't even know how to describe it, but it's something electrical going on inside of a dome, I think. Um, and there's something about all the temples here. Like recently, within the last 5 years, they've built like a half a dozen or more temples, maybe more, um, all throughout the valley. And so that's been very loud in my awareness as I'm driving around because a lot of times I'm driving by them. And so I'm being conscious about that and about where they are and like how the energy flows in a town. Like not just with people that are maybe members of the church and bring their energy physically inside the building. Um, but it's such a vast network of churches, by the way, and they all have the things at the top. And so I very much like see it as a mechanism for suction of human energy. Like people come into the church and then their energy all collects and goes like out the top. And particularly with the temples that have the golden statues on top of them, it's like gold is a conductor, duh. And so particularly with all these new temples, it's like it's just like really curious, like what's going on here? How is the energy flowing? What happens when we reverse like are we reversing the flow of energy? Or are we reversing the polarity? Is it both? Is it something else?
Mhm.
I'm not 100% sure at this juncture, but it feels like the energy has been being sucked out of the people and the land and then siphoned through the churches and going somewhere else. And it's like once we land on the right mechanism or process to reverse the flow of that, it's like energies start flowing like galactically back into Gaia to restore all that's been taken from her and us as a collective. So I don't exactly know how that's working just yet. I just know what I know.
No, that's excellent. Yeah, that sounds awesome. Well, our Gothic cathedrals are are designed to actually take the energy of worship, raise it up into the spire, reflect it back down into scalar waves, and then that's what heals the body. And there's you've heard of medbed technology. There's another version of it, and I don't know if medbed technology is this or not, but there's another version that uses scalar waves, where it just resonates the scalar waves, and you just spend time in order to like system restore yourself back to a better version. But the you'll see with the Masonic places, it's all squares, so it's Metatronic. That's Metatron's technology. All of that is the black cube technology. And the spire that you see, it's not like the Gothic cathedrals. It's like a skyscraper. It's an obelisk. And all of our buildings are obelisks. So they, I think, they send that energy up to maybe Saturn or back to the Orion constellation again, and that's where our energy is being siphoned off.
I don't know if I mentioned this before, but when you brought up the Catholic building, there's one of those on that same street we were talking about before, where there's those all those other temples. There's a Catholic one right in between the LDS temple and the Masonic temple, for
Mm-hmm.
whatever that's worth.
Well, be.
That's where I went to elementary school. I was like 2 blocks from all of this,
Oh, wow.
which ended up being the same elementary school that my dad's name at birth, given name was Horace, and he hated it. He never went by Horace his whole life. He wanted to be called Bud instead. So
Yeah.
that's another like interesting thing. I'm uh I don't know, just playing with the energy of because it's the school that I went to was miles away from where my house was. There's a reason why I had to take a city bus. It wasn't close. And so there was no accident that I was placed at this particular school. And I just happened to find out, in my 30s that that's where my grandfather went to school. And so, anyways, family stories are everywhere. But just something really interesting about that feels like bridging the gap between one paradigm and another. My
Right.
dad's family is very Mormon, very LDS. And my mom's family wasn't. So I got to see both of those paradigms growing up, not through the LDS in my dad's side of the family, but just because it was so culturally prominent. Um, but me and my mom never went to church when I was younger. We started going to a Baptist church when I was 8 years old, and so I got to see a little bit different side of the religious culture that's here. But there's lots of different religions here.
I was told by somebody who obviously had this experience that if you're Christian or if you're some other religion that you don't like, there's a double standard in that area. That if you're Mormon, then you get the red carpet treatment, but if you're not, then you pay a little more or you don't get good service or something. I don't know if that's true at all. Maybe
I've
it
heard
used to.
similar things. Well, even recently, I've heard similar things about how even some of the people that were raised in the Mormon church in childhood felt as though they were outsiders because of either their family status, how long they've been in the church, like all kinds of different, just what seems silly and stupid to judge people on. And especially coming from a sect of the culture that denounces judgment. Like, okay, we're not about judgment, but we're going to judge our people.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sorry, I don't consent to hypocrisy, so that's a big no for me.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, religion's interesting. There's lots of different layers.
Yep.
I think it's not a coincidence that it's coming up because we're also clearing all of the unwanted ripple effects that was created by introducing religion in the first place. Religion wasn't always on this planet.
Yep.
So clearing all of that. Oh my gosh, lots clearing out of that.
Yes, I had a place that I worked, and the heads of it were from the Mormon Church, and it was clear that I mentioned about the mentality in Virginia. There's just this, it's like stuck in the spirit that there's still like the slavery days. And so there's the masters and there's the slaves. And this job in particular definitely had the feel of slavery, where you were not trusted with anything and they'll mess with your pay somehow just to show that they can, that sort of thing. And so I had to do a lot of like forgiveness because I guess it was one of my triggers. And I had to do a lot of forgiveness and repenting and all that to clear that out. And then I just got a job offer from there that was totally undervalued. Otherwise, I probably would have taken it. But I was just reminding myself, well, there's a reason why you left there, and you're not going to change it.
I had a similar circumstance earlier this year. It was maybe in the spring, I think March or so, where an old boss of mine reached out to me, and this is where like, okay, so I have narcissistic cluster dynamics in multiple aspects of my life. It's almost like I came to clear it because it's like I bounced from one cluster to another. Has been prior to becoming aware of it,
Mm-hmm.
has been my experience, and so my basically first job out of college um, was under the regime of this guy. And, in the beginning, I respected him a lot because he was an entrepreneur. He's doing all this himself. He had brilliant ideas and the confidence to communicate them. And, he kind of took me under his wing and mentored me a lot. And I appreciated that. I learned a lot there and I always expressed gratitude to him. But some of his people dynamics and the way he treated the staff was awful, absolutely awful. And the culture there was awful. And so I kind of took the position of trying to help course correct some of those dynamics. And in large part, I did okay until like, and the people were happy. Like, and I even put it on my resume, like the turnover rate went from something like 89% before my management of that group to like 11% after. And it was only because we were a small team and we lost one person because she got married and moved. So I felt like I was helping to make a huge difference in the dynamics of the culture. But it was still really difficult and it still like it didn't change the mindset of the boss. And so I really just kind of became a middleman in a way and a sounding board to help people keep their sanity and not be super ticked off and have an outlet to be heard where they weren't getting that otherwise. um Funny story, he turned out to be related to my uncle that died in a fire. So like 2 months before maybe even just a month before I left the company, my aunt and uncle's house burned down and he wasn't able to get out. My aunt was, so she survived the fire, but he died in the fire, and unfortunately. And that was an interesting relationship to look up to in my life too, because there was something like 24 years difference between those two. And so I never fully understood really what was going on there. But maybe part of the, we've talked about the lineages of I don't know what was going on there, but he was, and I didn't really know him that well. I don't think I knew him well enough to say whether or not he's part of this narcissism cluster, but the patterning could be there. And it makes sense to the story. But when he died and I saw the names of the cousin, they're like cousins or something. Um, and I was like, oh, is that who I think it is? And I ended up meeting his whole family and all his brothers. He didn't go, but I did to the funeral, but I did. And so that was really an interesting kind of tidbit of information to learn on my way out of that company. But that was like 5 years ago. So fast forward 5 years, and he reaches out to me and is like, "Hey, so we're looking to expand into other states, and I thought you'd be really capable of taking on a project like that." And my immediate response was, um, I'm building a lot of stuff, and so I'm not sure if I'll have the capacity to take that on in addition to what I'm already doing, but I'm happy to entertain a conversation about it. I was happy to go to lunch with him and have a negotiation and be like, look, let me tell me what your needs are, and I'll tell you what I need in return. And it's going to look like something like flexibility and, autonomy. But if you're willing to give me those things, then let's talk. And he never texted me back. So I kind of took that as a win in the revisiting old paradigms and, kind of relishing in the growth and knowledge of, kind of, I don't know. My first thought was, well, he didn't respond because he, like, just based on my confident assertion of the way it is, like, he knows he can't um drive me the way that he did before because I've grown a lot since then. And so just it was just nice to recognize that that came through even in just the tiniest of interactions. And so just honoring that as a way to close out processes is clear communication and revisiting things.
Yeah, certainly.
He's another puzzle piece, by the way. That's interesting that he's coming up. Because he's also dealt with losing a son in the last few years. His oldest son, his namesake, committed suicide, which was unfortunate. I'm still not sure exactly how. But I guess the details don't really matter. But that was a jolt when I found that out.
Yeah. Yeah. Well,
So there's something about like direct connection in the lineage to some of these awful paradigms, as well as um, indirect connections,
hmm.
all holding kind of similar patterning for each other. And so maybe being able to come into the awareness of that breaks it up a little bit so that
Yeah.
it can clear from all sides of the spectrum because it's been everywhere and so densely anchored in that it's been difficult to clear. And maybe because of some of this illusionary kind of reflective influence as well. And maybe that's why I came in with the level of story that I did on all the different levels, because like how else do you overcome such an intricately designed system that's meant to keep you locked into it? You have to be able to have enough information to put it on the board and know, what makes sense and what doesn't.
Mm-hmm.
So more illusions, clearing out all the mechanisms, all the paradigms,
Yeah.
anything and everything that's kept us stagnant or stuck in those.
I'd like to call upon the geometry to correct itself, return itself back into its original form.
Original organic divine blueprint of all that is coming in. To be anchored in its proper place, never to be lost again. So it is.
So it is.
It's funny that we were talking about electricity, because I have a call in about 3 days, that's going to be focused on water and regridding, like not regridding, but like sending love and light and kind of gridding to all
Okay.
the waters on the planet. So like saltwater, freshwater, estuaries where those meet, mineral grids, like all the different layers of water and how it plays into life, I guess.
Yeah.
I've been getting for a while that there's something about the work that we're doing that is conditioning the relationship between water and electricity. And if you think about the human biofield, we're 70, 80, whatever percentage it is water, but we also are very much electromagnetic. And so there's something to be said about restoring like whatever's needed there in that relationship to really fully bring through, I don't know, unity consciousness, maybe. Maybe that's part of what's missing is this proper balance between the water, the electricity, and the magnetism.
Mm-hmm. I think it would bring in more instantaneous communication. For the purpose of manifestation, it would happen quicker. Because right now, I think it's like everything filters through our ego mind first, which is almost a showstopper right there before it even gets into the universe, and then the universe has to interpret it, factor in what resources does it send to you, and so by that time, and then coming through again in our misinterpretation of things, I just realized that I manifest a lot of things, and I don't even realize it's a manifestation. That's why it was kind of all right. Going back to Tuesday's class, when I looked at my genetic line, what I realized was the generation after generation of generation of people who curse. And it's true, but it's kind of funny at the same time. It's like my dad and I are factory workers, we're sailors. I was with the Marines, so you would think that we have the filthiest mouths in the family. No, my mom, the Reverend, has the filthiest mouth by far in the family, and that whole line of farmers they're just that way, and they would think nothing of it. They would just say, and I'm not going to repeat them, but they would just say things and mock people, backbiting, that sort of thing. All of that is manifestation to the negative. So I went through as much as I could of releasing, repenting, zeroing out all of that energy, all that discordant energy, realigning it with source, and and then trying to put positive light behind it, and making sure that I change my ways, change my words, and that.
Yeah, I think it's incredibly important to move through that process. Like as we bring telepathy back.
Yep.
That's kind of where I was starting to go with the eliminating the ego mind, and bringing the thoughts. Like our communication is so different than maybe what it has been in the past because there's something about the density lock that like keeps our thoughts trapped in our own space, and so that's where kind of the ego like um like the being in a vacuum idea of where you're kind of locked into your own thoughts, and if you're not as able to process communication about that, like there's so many layers in between in the dynamics of communication that um have needed work for a long time. And so it's good that we're kind of conditioning all of this, but we can't exactly bring telepathy back fully until that stuff has been cleared because we don't want to be cursing each other mentally when we're just having thoughts. And so telepathy has been, I think, a big project that's coming in phases, and we get to see it in the synchronicities and the, deja vus and the different things that kind of come into our experience and awareness. But ultimately, I think that's where we're going, is bringing telepathy back online in a big way, so that we can see and come full circle with the way things were with fresh eyes and a new knowledge based on everything we've been through.
Yeah. Yep. Well, I was getting a taste of that when I talked to my grandfather my deceased grandfather during a hypnosis session. That's the first thing that he did was when we were talking, he didn't move his lips, and I could hear his voice. And I'm like, how are you doing that? He's like, oh well, we could do that here, and you'll be able to do that too. And I'm just like, you're such a show off. But yeah, he was the foul mouthed grandfather too. But he watched his P's and Q's when he was in heaven.
Just holding space for the clearing of all distortion patterns have kept us from embodying our full capacity for telepathy, as well as any other natural gifts. Because we all have some. We're just not oriented to that lifestyle anymore.
Right. Well, I know that we're always transmitting, but we just don't choose to receive. I've had people's voices enter my head sometimes when I'm talking to them and they don't say something, but for some reason then I hear it.
I've been noticing something that feels a little bit opposite of that, like in my world, because if I'm with a group of people and we're having a conversation, sometimes I'll have a thought, and before I can say words, somebody else will say exactly what I was thinking.
Mhm.
So I know that there's definitely something about transmitting, information silently. But what you said about receiving, makes me wonder how much we're receiving unconsciously through these portals in our auric field that are tapping into our body networks. And so maybe you're receiving an equal amount of transmission that you're giving. You're just unaware of it because it's hiding and doing
Yeah,
things that maybe we don't want it to do.
yeah. I do get the sense that somehow I protect myself because there is, yeah, for anybody out there that's looking at astral projection or remote viewing, and they're thinking like the most obvious thing about, well, what if they see me when I'm in the shower? And it just seems like there's some form of protection there that just doesn't happen. It's um, energetically driven is what it is. And maybe it's also because unless you're specifically looking for that, then you're not going to find it. If I'm remote viewing a target, I don't care if I don't care if the night shift is in the locker room doing whatever. What I'm looking for, okay, well, where are the threats that I need to identify, and what information do I need to report up in that? So it's not that personal. But even when I'm looking at the body, I don't. And you probably, I'd like to know your experience. You don't see a body. You might see a light body, but then it's colors, and it might be even just noticing things that are out of place. Like again with Tony, when you see something just sort of like sticking up out of his head, then I'm not admiring his robust head of hair. I'm saying, whoa, there's something wrong here, and what do I do about it?
I don't usually see people's bodies. And granted, I'm not asking to, but I'm working with their higher self to show me what I need to see in order to help them in the best way that possible for them. And so in that particular scenario, I saw like different shades of gray through the auric fields. Um, and I saw electrical connections maybe that didn't belong. Like I see the things that I'm meant to clear, I think, as opposed to seeing that overlaid on the body. And maybe that's just a level of, of awareness that I will reach. But at this point, there's always a lot going on in my field. And so I think my higher self like filters a lot of information to just make it a streamlined process. Because it's kind of like we talked about before about there being a lot of like density going on and a lot like on some level there's really a lot that needs to be cleared, but we can only kind of linearly walk through it one piece at a time or one step at a time. So it's almost like the all of it is there, but I'm only being shown like tiny tidbits of what to kind of focus on next. And then I get to see that and then listen to the conversation that's happening and then like figure out how to match that up because it's not always at the same time that I see it that that it's being addressed necessarily.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. This is why I want to get into electronics because I think it'll be helpful once I be able to see when I can see the body as a circuit board. Then the meditation that we did, where you have the whatever 27 switches on the spine, that's what had me tripped up because what do? They're not labeled. Do I just switch them all? Do I, I couldn't figure out what's the purpose of this. But
Ask for labels.
yeah,
Ask me
yeah,
for labels because I've seen different diagrams of the spine and they have kind of like that map of the brain that you sent me where it has different areas that are connected to different like zones and body parts. Like I've seen similar graphics for the spine where it tells you what each spinal disc is related to.
yeah. That would have been a lot better if I would have just go according to vertebrae. I'd have a much better idea. Yeah, but the switchboard was a little bit too out there.
Was that
And we
before
did.
or after we removed illusions? I think it was after because that's how we identified it was the spider creature.
Oh,
So
I
that's
was.
what I think I'm going to incorporate into my regular practice is starting off with that key, generating
Mhm,
a key that can go into a lock and release any and all illusion paradigms or information connected to that as we start a healing session, I think is a pretty prudent way to approach the unknown.
mhm,
Remove illusions before you do start doing stuff, then you're not duplicating work for yourself.
yeah. Hmm. I'm just gonna have to. I'm gonna install that switch box in my sanctuary. So from now on, when we go anywhere we go, I'm just gonna hit that. Well, have your headaches improved?
Yeah, by a lot. I still occasionally get like a twinge here and there, but they don't stick around for very long. And I'm able to just kind of witness it and hold space for it, I guess. Like I'm not specifically working on it necessarily. I'll just kind of put my hand to it and just send love.
Mhm. I've done that.
Particularly where I can feel my heartbeat, because it's almost like reinvigorating that spot then sends that good energy through the pulsing heartbeat, like back to the heart, because it all recirculates. My heartbeat's really strong today. It's like pulsing out of its skin.
Oh boy.
So we're processing a lot, but it's all good stuff.
Yeah.
Um, did we remove the, I think that was the first thing we did, but I'm just was reminded about the, when you said bringing the switchboard into the sanctuary, I heard control room. And I remember that we started this conversation talking about the control room being up here and kind of needing to um,
Uh,
come full circle.
mm,
Almost like, um, okay, so you know how we created this central axis point that goes through the heart and one's vertical and one's horizontal?
yes.
It's like there's a top of an ankh around our body that connects with that central axis point. So it's almost like I'm seeing like a bubble or like sphere or whatever you want to call it, but it's like an easy way to move that control room like from the place where it's out of place to just like follow the bubble, just kind of spin the bubble to where that can move back to where it needs to be.
Hmm. Hmm.
So maybe, oh, I don't know what I'm seeing. Is this a helmet? Is this a it's a helmet around our heart that encapsulates everything above it for
Well,
protection? That's part of what's been messed with.
well, the two spheres that come together from the head and from down through the head and then into the heart, when they join together, that is your heart chamber right there. That becomes your sanctuary. It's my understanding. And then from there, you go anywhere. But if we channel, then the person that we're channeling enters into the sanctuary with us. But you take them up to what I call the ready room, right behind the pineal gland. And you can correct me if I'm wrong about this, because like I said, I'm not the best note taker, but that's what I've been doing for channeling.
I think we were instructed to invite whatever we were channeling into the the chamber that's there. So I guess yeah, I guess you're saying the same thing.
Yeah.
Um, mhm.
Now, that thing around your head, you think is a giant helmet? That might be a dimensional bubble. In which case, it might be something you want to collapse. It's not part of your shields.
I wonder if I was seeing an expanded version of the sanctuary where the sanctuary we created was like the size of a basketball. And so almost
Yeah.
like if you blow that bubble up bigger,
That's what I do.
stand with you. Yeah.
I blow it up until I'm completely encased inside of it, and so I'm life size inside of my blue cathedral. And then from there, I greet higher self, and we decide what we do. I actually installed a baptismal font as well. I forget which one. Oh, I think it was a channeling class that I decided to do that. And so it's got running water. It's got living water running through it. And so I literally go and higher self baptizes me full immersion before I come out and then do well now it's for anything, but I was doing that for channeling. Then I haven't baptized whoever I'm channeling as well, so that we're on the straight path. As we detox Gaia here, I'm looking at, well, we've probably done all of this already, but uploading gratitude frequencies, uploading frequencies of gratitude, and it's probably part of your. Let's just integrate that into your already established grid work, and then piggybacking that with restoring source codes for a return to abundance.
Releasing all resistance to receiving abundance,
Oh yeah.
honoring the wisdom that we are abundance. And clearing out any and all energetic templates uh, that deviate from the original organic divine blueprint. Thank you. Talking about this 14 chamber non-body system has me wondering how many of the other non-body systems have some kind of like distortion or misinformation. Or I mean, we already talked about the chakra system, but I think what we heard in class was that there's like 144 or something like that that they were able to like list and identify. Like, so who knows how many of those are tainted too?
Mm-hmm.
Even the stuff we think is helping us, like Just clearing all of that, every single all distortion, all layers, levels, and dimensions across all timelines, lifetimes, spaces, dimensions, and realities. Highest good of every all. Highest good of every. Yes, thank you. I accept, I receive. Yes, thank you. I accept, I receive. Restoring the natural templates of divinity, the original organic template, original organic divine template of the heart of all that is, heart of the planet, the heart of every single species, heart of our collective, the heart of the unity conscious field. Be here now. With us in our divine sovereignty, with us in our hearts, forever and ever. And as we open up this grand channel, pillar of light, it automatically sucks out any and all energetic influence, no longer in our highest good, both seen and unseen, any and all illusions, distortions, misrepresentations, misappropriations, allowing it all to move through us. Accepting and receiving the new as we release and allow all else. Trusting the process. Trust and allow, trust and allow. I'm going to recommend everyone listening to this stick your feet in the earth if you can, some dirt or some grass. Drink lots of water as we ground and integrate. Do whatever earthing processes that are available and aligned for you. So we ground all of this to Gaia together, grounding the collective into unity consciousness. Aligning our unity fields, the highest good of all, across all lifetimes, timelines, spaces, dimensions, and realities. Anchoring the unity consciousness field into the restored, original, organic, divine blueprint of the heart and all other original, organic, divine blueprints as we anchor the unity of all that is into all that is. What an honor. We express gratitude for the process, for the lessons, for the wisdom, and for the love that's present. Across all of the lifetimes, timelines, spaces, dimensions, and realities. Thanking our angels, guides, helpers, and friends, and Gaia, our collective energies, our shared energies, our divine sovereignty, and our inner children for participating in this process. I'm hearing step into the sun as well. Safely, of course. But there's something about us bridging with our energy, the connection between the warmth of the sun and the groundedness of the earth. I think I need a nap after all that.
Sounded like a lot of stuff. Yeah, my mind is surprisingly quiet for a change. It's a pretty good thing.
Do you want to douse for something really quick?
So about DAOs, yes.
So I want to know, so the team has been, someone brought to the table that there were Gaia's soul shards that have been basically imprisoned, captured and imprisoned elsewhere, and people have been like using them for stuff. And so they identified 93. We've been working a lot on those. I think we're down to the 60s of that's our soul shards that still need to be reclaimed. And I'm feeling like whatever we did here today probably called some of those in. So I'm wondering how many more we reclaimed today through the work we did earlier.
All right. Did we reclaim more than 10 soul shards? More than 20? More than 30? More than 40? More than 50? Okay. 50 or 49, 48, getting there. 47. Looks like 47. 47 soul shards.
Not bad for a day's
That-
work.
Yeah, that's outstanding. Out of what, 62, you said?
Something like that.
62. How'd you do that?
I disappeared. Only half of me is here. Cute.